You're watching Detroit on Deck. Here are your hosts, Dave Cesefske and Josh Clark.
All right, man. So it's another week down. The Lions did not win, obviously. Played the Bills. I mean, that was one of those games where if you were circling maybe one more loss, that was, for me anyways, Clark, that was one of those games where I said, they may win this, they may lose this game, but in all honesty, it doesn't really play too big of a role in terms of placement in the NFL playoffs. I mean, they still have the number one seed in the NFC. Obviously, the AFC is a different picture with the Chiefs at top. But I think the Bills right now have the best odds I saw in Vegas to win the Super Bowl. And the Lions are two because they're not going to pick two AFC teams, right? They're not.
Right.
It's just not the way it works. So, and then it's the Chiefs at number 3. But, Josh, I got to ask you, we were texting back and forth. Did Dan Campbell lose that game or did injuries lose that game? Because we're going to get into injuries, but that onside kick with 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter, maybe they were never going to come back, but it felt like, okay, Matt Collins takes that back, almost returns it. They score a touchdown, and it's like, okay, but 70-yard score really just doesn't matter.
I think it's a product of 3 different things, actually. I think Dan Campbell did lose in that game by going for it so early into the fourth quarter, but I also think he went for it because of the product he has on the field on the defensive side of the ball.
Agreed.
He knew that they couldn't stop them, and they didn't stop them all game, basically, outside of that, a missed field goal.
Yeah.
But then the third thing, in my opinion, is regardless of who's on the field, these are all professional players. Like Aaron Glenn did a crappy job yesterday. He made no in-game adjustments at all.
Yeah, I mean, but sometimes it's like you say you're a carpenter, you're only as good as the tools you have in your toolbox.
Right.
Like he couldn't do a lot. I mean, even the dudes that were not really worth a darn got injured yesterday, right? Like we lost another cornerback. We lost 2 of them.
Dorsey.
Like, Dorsey's an afterthought, but like he's had some moments, like returning the ball a couple times versus Titans. And he's depth, right? He's better than Vildor, I think we can agree on.
Yeah.
And Kendall Vildor, he's your starting corner right now because, you know, Davis is out right now, and really he was playing at Pro Bowl level. I mean, his grades over the last 4 games, he was like literally a top 5 corner in the NFL. And it felt like, okay, this guy feels like a number 1. He made Terry and Arnold better. You know, he was out there coaching him. It felt good because you could trust at least, okay, that showed how good our corners really were for a long time besides yesterday because we didn't get a lot of pass rush, you know, with Hutch out. We haven't gotten a ton. And our corners is still held up, so of our safeties. But yesterday it was like, man, our corners are hurt. And once Davis got hurt, it was like, it was over with, man, because – you know, and then Aleem McNeil, really, who was the only guy that was getting pressure because yesterday, I mean, you could have made coffee and Josh Allen still would have had time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he just had way too much time. And when a guy's that good, they're going to carve you apart. So here's my question to you. Are the Lions as good as the record is, or is it a product of their schedule? Because who have they beaten?
I mean, you can't fault them for the schedule. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like,
of course.
Like,
and it looked a lot better last year, right? Obviously, nobody thought the Jags were going to be this bad, but...
Right, exactly. No one thought the Niners would be looking this bad, who they still got on their schedule.
Chicago was supposed to be better, right?
Minnesota's a good team. They're overachieving from what people thought.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody thought it was Green Bay and it was Detroit coming into the year.
And Green Bay, we beat them twice.
Right. So to answer your question, though, I do think the Lions are as good as their record, regardless of the schedule. Coming into the season, as it currently sits, I think they need a lot of prayers.
Yeah, I agree.
The first prayer that they need is to get home field advantage. You can't go to a snowy Philadelphia and win that type of game.
Or Buffalo in the Super Bowl. Can you imagine? I feel like
the Super Bowl
wouldn't be that way. Because they wouldn't be there, obviously, the Super Bowl. But, okay, like
You
said,
can't go to
Philly.
You can't go to Philadelphia and win a snowy type of game.
Okay, Minnesota. If Minnesota wins, listen,
Minnesota's
it's in
indoors
the
though,
dome.
so
That's what I'm saying. Like
that don't scare me. That
that.
don't scare me.
See, that team doesn't scare me, right?
Right.
Like Sam Darnold is going to be Sam Darnold. He's going to
Right.
show up at one point. Like I think we both agree. Now, Clark, I want to get into the offensive injuries too, but first I want to say, listen, Aleem McNeil, he gets hurt. Carlton Davis, he's out. We talked about Dorsey. That's kind of not as high on the list, but you got Aleem McNeil, you got Rodrigo, you got
Anzalone,
Davis, you got Anzalone, you got Hutch,
Derek
Barnes. I mean,
Davis now.
right. Like it's really starting to
Like
add
we're not
up.
talking about like third and fourth string either. We're talking about guys who were slated to come into this season as a Detroit Lions starter.
And even backup guys are hurt.
And that's literally all those guys that we just named. That's literally like at least 10 of our 11 defensive guys.
We're literally starting Pat O'Connor at
Yeah.
defensive tackle. Like he sounds like
Right.
it sounds like a guy that owns an Irish bar.
Well,
You know what I mean?
for now, I seen that Levi Onwuzurike or whatever. Yeah, he's supposed to be back this week, so that's gonna help a little bit.
He played last week, actually.
Oh, did he? I didn't notice that.
And that's the thing. Him or Pascal, they're playing for their jobs, in my opinion. Because if they don't have a strong finish to the year, I wouldn't bring either of them back. Pascal's been an injury problem. He hasn't.
Well, you have to bring him back, at least Pascal for sure because of all the injuries on the.
No. What I'm saying is like for this season, right? They're playing for their jobs.
Yeah, but you said coming in the next season, I'm bringing Pascal back regardless. Like you need that depth. Like this year shows you one thing. It shows you that you need depth upon depth upon depth.
You know what? And then you have to wonder: did they give up too early on? Who's the defensive end?
James Houston. James Houston.
That sounds like that would have been nice to have, man. Did you see that video where they thought he crapped himself?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I mean, as long as he gets the sack, I don't care what he does. But hey, let's get to the big news of the day. Listen, David Montgomery is going to be out for the season, MCL injury. That's a big loss. It's a big loss, right? So. Yeah, obviously you got Gibbs. That's your. I mean, it is a big loss. It is a big loss. It's a huge. Right, your fantasy football, but
no, I'm talking in general.
I think it's a huge loss. I mean,
I think it's a huge loss in one condition, but we'll get into that.
Here's the thing: you can't run Gibbs 30 times. He's not that type of back. Can you get him the ball 30 times? Possibly, but there's not a back in the league right now I think can run 30 times and withstand. The week-to-week thing, of getting hurt. If it's like a car accident, like players say.
I mean, Derrick Henry possibly, but he's older in age, so he's got a little bit more brittle bones.
Derrick
nowadays.
Henry's built like a monster.
Right, and maybe Saquon.
Right. Well, and even his knees.
Right, that's what I'm saying, man. That's why I said maybe Saquon.
So I'm going to give you three guys that could possibly listen. I think that that Craig Reynolds is going to be. He can be a David Montgomery to a lesser degree. And I think you and I agree it's going to be a big spoonful of Jahmyr Gibbs. And that's probably a good thing because you saw the offense really wasn't lacking. They just weren't able to run the ball. But when you're down, it takes away from – I mean, you can't
run it anyways, right?
You can't run it anyways. So Jahmyr Gibbs is – we agree in terms of like, okay, production, you're probably not going to lose a lot because, Jahmyr Gibbs is quicker. You can do some more things with him. But you got to have some guys to spell him. You have to.
Yep.
So Craig Reynolds can do that. I think Craig Reynolds can actually be fine if he gets like 5 to 10 carries a game. I think he'd be fine, right? Like, and I think he might get like maybe 60. Let me see. Yeah, I'll say 35, 40 yards. If he got like 10, 11 carries, he could get like 40 yards with our offensive line. I think he could.
Yeah. For sure.
But there's three guys, and I want you to tell me like, yes, we should sign this guy, or I pass. Okay, I'm gonna actually give you four guys. Here's the first one, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We talked about it today. You sent that to me today. Chiefs released him.
Yep.
Does it make sense, and would you sign him? Because I personally say it doesn't make sense, but I would bring him in. Jahmyr Gibbs, really, he's that player, but way better. I think if you could bring him in for insurance.
Yep, and that's 100% what I would agree with. You need the depth piece. Like he has the Super Bowl caliber. He's been in the Super Bowl. He's got that experience. He brings another, playoff veteran
Hmm.
type player, even though he hasn't really played the last year and a half. But he does have, some Super Bowl experience. So from that standpoint alone, I would definitely bring him in for a third down type of role behind Gibbs, maybe.
How about Jarek McKinnon?
Oh, 100%. I would actually take him over
I
Clyde
love that
Edwards-Helaire.
pick, right? Right? I
I
like
mean,
it.
granted, he is the same. I mean, he's not as good as Gibbs, obviously, but he's the same type of player. Like,
He can honestly, you could even like put Gibbs in the slot and put McKinnon in the backfield, and you're
right.
dangerous, right? Like
Oh yeah, for sure. 'Cause they can both catch it out of the backfield, so it kind of adds another dynamic to that offense.
Melvin Gordon,
No, I'm passing on Melvin.
he fumbles too
For me.
much,
Yeah, he hasn't really showed much the last few years. He was active in the league, and like you just said, he does fumble too much. And
yeah.
no, I'm good.
Here's an interesting one, and here's the one that I say yes, and I'm not going to use him a ton, but I think I would use this guy like you could get 10 carries a game. Latavius Murray,
That's actually nice. That might be my top. That might be my top choice.
right? He played for
Kind of
Buffalo
he,
last year.
he kind of gives you that bruising type of back that Monty kind of brought you. But like you said, if it's anything more than 7 to 10 carries a game, like no, thank you.
Yeah, but like 10 carries, man, like
Yeah,
and obviously it goes as the game goes, right? Like if Gibbs is absolutely dominating, I'm going to keep feeding him. I'm going to
yeah,
keep getting him passes and I mean, he's unguardable. He really is, right? Like
yeah,
defenses they struggle with him. So
yeah.
if it's Murray, I like that because then you can keep Reynolds in special teams,
Yep.
where he that's where he's supposed to be, right?
And
Mop
then
up
another
duty.
guy, who's probably going to get called up, possibly as a third back now, is probably Jameer Jefferson, who's on the practice squad.
I
I would
don't hate
assume.
that. I don't
I
hate
would
that at all.
assume.
Even
So
Vaki, I don't hate that. Like,
yeah,
and I'm talking like you and I are talking like maybe like 1, 2 carries a game, if that. Like,
right.
just be
Just to
right.
kind of throw offense or defenses off.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't think that the Super Bowl odds are as high. Can they still win a Super Bowl? Yeah, they can. But I think now, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think now the conversation is can they make the Super Bowl? Not, you know, are they going to win the Super Bowl? Like, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to get there. I think before everybody's like, they're the pick. They're the pick. They're going to go.
Well, I will say this. I was watching Monday Night Countdown today at 6 p.m. And as of 6 p.m. tonight, they're still the favorite to come out of the NFC.
I mean, I can't argue with that though. Who is it? Philly? They don't
It
scare
was
me.
yeah, they were at plus 160. Philly was second at plus 200.
Hmm. And listen, Minnesota and Green Bay don't scare me. They really don't. We went to Minnesota and Green Bay's house and took care of
But the
business.
reason I think a lot of that stuff is still staying the Detroit's favorite as well is you got to think of all these players that potentially could be coming back. Like we know Anzalone's coming back week 18 or first game of the playoffs, which is a
Right.
huge gain. We know that Melifonwu is going to be coming back week 18 or that first playoff game. Like their practice windows,
Oh yeah.
I believe their practice
It
windows
opened today,
can
Melifonwu.
open. Yeah, they opened them already.
Rakestraw
So
too.
and Rakestraw, who's going to step into that cornerback position. So you have some studs coming back. Granted, it's not the studs that we would prefer, Aiden Hutchinson,
Right.
McNeil, those type of guys. But
Here's my concern,
you're
Clark.
getting some starters back who have that playoff experience outside of Rakestraw.
Here's my concern. If Rakestraw is gonna, he can't start, right? You can't have two rookies starting.
If it's him or Vildor, I'm sorry, Rakestraw's on the field.
Vildor's terrible. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want him to play at all.
But then another guy that we didn't mention either, Emmanuel Mosley, his practice window opens soon as well.
Okay.
Granted, I don't want to
He
rely
ain't
on him
played
because
in
he
2
hasn't
years,
played
but-
in 2 years, but it gives us another playoff veteran type player on the field. So
I did see one other name out there. Curious to what you thought about it. Just a vet to come in and play a little bit, and he played as of last year, Patrick Peterson. And then for me,
I'm not against it. I'm really not. Like
that's what I'm saying. Like even if it's like playing like
Like,
10%
he
of the
showed-
snaps and like
like,
helping
he
these guys.
like he showed some flashes with the Steelers last year, so
Right.
I'm not against it.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Listen, you're going to have to bring in bodies. You're going to have
Yeah.
to bring in corners. You're going to have to bring in defensive tackles.
Well, if we go in, I'll tell you this right now. If we go into the playoffs with Vildor as one of our starters, like sure he's nice as a bench piece, you know what I mean, just to spare somebody for a play or two. But if we have to rely on him, like no, we're toast.
I agree. I mean, but
Especially defensively, we're gonna have to score 45 points a game if Vildor's on the field.
yeah, I mean, here's my concern though. Okay, and listen, it sounds silly, but like, okay, so we make the postseason. Say we get the bye. Okay, my concern is playing teams like, Tampa Bay, like like Stafford and them guys, like Stafford. I know he didn't have a great game statistically. It was crazy weather, right?
Yeah.
When they played San Francisco, but
Yeah,
like
with Puka and Cooper
that's
Cup,
what I'm
like no,
saying.
thank
Like,
you.
and Kyron, like
And
I mean that's a
Kyron,
lot.
Demarcus Robinson, and I just seen that they were also the favorite to sign Odell Beckham after getting released by Miami.
I mean, see, like that.
So
I mean, that would be nice. And then I saw Tyler Higbee's coming back, so
yep,
like,
so
and we knocked him out, right? Like,
right. So yeah,
so,
there's a lot of potential
but
trouble for.
Josh, who scares me even more, if I'm being honest, is Mike Evans and the Bucks
Oh yeah,
because okay,
yeah.
yeah,
I
they
mean,
beat us earlier this year, but like Baker
they've already
Mayfield,
beat.
who's playing
Yeah,
better than Baker? Like I know
right.
Josh Allen, but like outside of like some other guys, like Baker is playing at a high level.
No,
I
for
mean,
sure.
it's like you think about top five quarterbacks, in any order you want to this year. Josh Allen's in there, right? Lamar is in there,
You
and
got to put Goff in
you got to
there.
put Goff in there, and then you can
Burrow.
start having a conversation. It's
Nah, Burrow's in there.
Burrow's in there, but I think you can have a conversation about number five, and Baker's like
No, for
in the
sure.
conversation,
No, yeah, for
right?
sure.
So that just shows like how good he is. Like Pat Mahomes is not in there,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you could probably put Jalen Hurts in there, probably just because of the way that he's been playing this year.
But
But
he won't like there's so much video of him. And
yeah,
it's weird because he's not like he won't go downfield anymore. I don't get
right.
it. He used to be like him and Brown, they don't get along anymore. Like in my
Yeah,
opinion, that thing is going to get broken up this year because
yeah.
they don't win a Super Bowl, and maybe it's not fair, but I think they have a goon as a coach, Sirianni. Like
Sirianni, yeah.
I think Jalen Hurts is extremely talented, but I think the scheme is very simple and it's
Yeah.
just he doesn't look as athletic either. Like I don't know if he's injured or what's going on, but quarterback play is it's been different this year, right? There's a lot of bad QBs in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like I'm just gonna pick somebody random. Levis, like that was a guy that's like
Yeah.
picked to be the next guy for Tennessee,
Mhm.
and they've got Callahan who coached Burrow in Cincinnati. Like he's a good coach,
Yep.
but it's weird. Like they'll bring in a scrub and they'll play so much better, right?
Yeah.
Like Mason Rudolph. You know what I mean?
I mean, Levis, granted, has played decently well over the last 3-4 weeks, but the whole season as a whole, like, I agree with you.
I mean,
But he's put. I mean, I'm talking like from a fantasy standpoint, he's put up a couple 30-point games. So I mean, that means you got to throw some yards.
in
He ain't
what
throwing.
league?
He ain't throwing touchdowns.
Yeah, no, he ain't throwing touchdowns. I mean that maybe in the leagues where you get points for throwing a 30-yard pass like yours, but no, I mean,
Touchdowns.
yeah, it's nice, but he's got legs. But I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of like in terms of like separation from tier A to tier B. There's a big gap there, and
All right.
go ahead.
So yeah, so week 10, 11, and week 12 for Levis. I mean, against the Chargers defense, Vikings defense, and the Houston Texans defense, he put up 27, 28,
But
31.
let me hear his numbers though. Passing.
Passing yards. He had 2 passing touchdowns. He had 10 rushing yards and 278 passing yards.
Okay, each game? Like, or is that just one of the games?
No, that was one of the games. That was against the Texans. Against the Vikings, 295 yards, 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown.
And how many picks?
In the Vikings game, he threw 1. Chargers game, no interceptions, 2 passing touchdowns, 41 rushing yards, 175 passing yards.
I just feel like a lot of that is just like it's just cleanup duty because he got benched yesterday. My point is not Will Levis. It's just like the difference. Like he won't be starting there next year. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get your point. Especially depending on where they fall in the draft for sure. Like,
and
there's going to be some better options.
I'll tell you the worst one though. The young guys is yours and the Colts, man. That guy, he's
Oh,
not thrown
Andy?
over. He hasn't thrown over 50%, but one time this year. I mean,
Yeah.
he's been really bad. Like that. There was also Taylor with that touchdown. If people didn't see it, that is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
he fumbled it.
You
Yeah.
can't do that. But there was
Yeah.
like 8 turnovers in that game yesterday. That's ridiculous. That's just. I mean, Anthony Richardson just he's broken, man. So, but that doesn't matter. We don't
Yeah.
care about that. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Back to the Lions,
yeah.
though. Like, let's talk about the Lions, what we expect them to look like moving forward, and like what this loss does for them.
I mean, you said it was a good thing, right? You
For
were
me
texting
personally, I think it's a great thing. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's God sent. I really do. To have JV defense out there on the field to potentially be, I mean, they're behind us. They're the number one offense, other than the Lions coming into the game yesterday. So
Right.
to lose by 6, sure, we gave up 48 points, but for that defense not to give up 70 when we couldn't stop them, that's impressive in a sense. You know what I'm saying? With the type of
Yeah.
talent that we had on the field. So
I
let's be
mean,
honest. Let's be
yeah.
honest. Like, they probably could have hung 70 on us.
I mean, they didn't have enough like possessions. They literally the only time they didn't score was when they missed a field goal. You know, like
I
they
mean,
scored every
They
time.
punted a couple times.
I don't think they punted once in that game. I
Oh, they
really
did for
don't.
sure. They did. Sam Martin punted a couple times.
Oh, Sam Martin. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like I mean, I don't know, they may have scored like 90% of their possessions or whatever, but like
So-
I was not I came away concerned in so many ways cuz I'm like if that's the defense, if that's it, like we're
But we know
screwed.
But we know that's not the defense coming into the playoffs, though. We know we're getting players back,
We're going to Anzalone would have made a huge difference. I'll say that.
and he's
Him.
going to be back for the playoffs.
Like he would have made a huge difference. I mean, him being out, we've dogged him over the years, but he's actually turned into one heck of a linebacker.
No,
like,
for sure.
Like, and I'm all about it. Like he's a leader out there, especially when it's a lot of young guys.
But my point is, though, too, like, I'm an outside viewpoint because the Lions are my secondary team. Like,
Right.
I get the stress for the Lions fans. I really do, because you're like, oh, we don't want to lose, but you also don't want to go into the playoffs not having lost since week 2. You know what I'm saying?
No,
You
I
want
mean,
something
I agree.
like, and who else are you going to lose to on this schedule? You should beat the Bears next week. You should
Well,
beat the Niners.
Minnesota is a
you should beat the
potential
Niners.
loss.
No, it's not.
I mean, I think that's for the conference, though. That's going to come down to it, and I think
I think the Vikings-
Jefferson scares me, and I can confidently say that.
I think the Vikings lose again before that game.
Yeah, to who? I'm curious. Pull up their schedule because
To the Packers.
yeah, well, I mean the Packers are better when they commit to the run. Josh Jacobs has been great for them, and I think that we've seen Love is not a gunslinger. He's like too many turnovers. I like him, but I think when they go run first like that, they're
They're a much better team.
Yeah,
I agree for sure. It opens up the tight end a little bit more in the middle of the field, opens up the play action downfield, things of that nature. So I agree. But I mean, Love can be a gunslinger for sure. It just depends on the offense. It just
they
depends
just
if the
went away
game
from
plan-
it.
Right. Because they haven't needed to do it lately because they've been winning.
I mean, not against
But
Detroit.
but I'm saying against Detroit though, like, he's going to put up numbers because they're going to probably be trailing against the likes of, let's say they get to the Super Bowl against the Bills or the Chiefs. They're probably going to be trailing. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to have to throw the ball some. But
yeah.
But my point is with the Lions, though, like, people are concerned about the defense, which I am too. Don't get me wrong. Like, putting up 48 points or giving up 48 points in the NFL is not cool. Like, it's your job to stop them from scoring.
Right.
But we know probably 4 or 5 of these guys ain't going to be starting come the playoffs because we're going to be getting some guys back.
No, for sure.
And that's going to help us. Like, you have to remember when this defense was semi-healthy, when we only had Hutchinson out middle of this season, there was a 6 or 7 game stretch where we gave up 21 or less points.
Right. Right.
You know
I mean, we were dominant at times.
So getting
not a lot out there.
Getting some of these guys back is definitely going to be beneficial to them moving forward. It's going to rejuvenate them. I feel like these guys are going to come back fresh, and that's going to be big for a playoff push.
I just think there's just too many big names out for the year. Like Carlton Davis, him being out is, in my opinion, it's just as big as Hutch because that's your Hutch in your secondary at corner spot.
So my thing is with that though too, getting Melifonwu back, like
he plays safety.
I agree. Listen, please. So we're gonna have probably the best 3 safeties in the league in terms of like they're gonna have to change up their defensive scheme of what they do, in my opinion, to get these players on the field at the same time. Like we need Melifonwu on that field. We need Kirby Joseph on the field. We need Branch on the field. We need Anzalone on the field come the playoffs when he's back. You know what I'm saying? We need the Darius out there. Like you have to change your scheme up. Like they might have to go because right now I believe they're what a 4-3. They might have to go to a 3-4.
You can't do that, man. That takes 2 years.
Might have
to do. It takes 2 years.
100%. A lot of these guys. I agree with you. I don't think they are either. But I mean, it would throw offenses off. You know what I mean? Because they're not expecting it. And two, you're getting your studs on the field that you have there, which is what's going to be important come playoffs. I mean, and remember, it's Dan Campbell. He does dumb crap all the time.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, like if I'm gonna be honest, and I love Detroit and I love the Lions, I think there was a lot with these injuries. I don't think there's any way that they can win a Super Bowl the way that they're constructed. I just feel like they've done a good job with depth, but like they've got like 20 guys on injured lists, and they've got like 12 on IR. Like I just don't think that is going to be manageable. I think they're not getting any pass rush whatsoever. Zadarius Smith's double teamed. Who in the heck is playing on the other side? I have no idea.
That goes back to my Aaron Glenn point though. Like he's terrible at in-game adjustments. You have to know how to adjust.
He's got nobody to adjust.
And again, that comes on you to put your players in the best possible position with what you have, and he's not doing that. If these players can't get it done, put somebody else in there. Their mantra is next man up, and it has been all year. If Mohamed ain't doing what he needs to be doing, get him off the field, then put somebody else in there. You know what I'm saying?
I think this is a Brad Holmes deal, in my opinion, though. Go out and get somebody. Like, go sign. I understand.
I agree. I agree. They definitely have to sign somebody for sure. But
this next man up thing, I hate that.
No, I agree. I agree with you for sure. Like this next offseason, like if your focus isn't to go and grab 2 or 3 cornerbacks and grab another defensive end or 2, grab another linebacker or 2, like what are you doing?
I mean, I would call Green Bay up and say, all right, what do you want for Jair? Like I would bring him here. I mean, him with Carlton Davis, or if you want Arnold, if you feel because Davis is a free agent. So
I agree, but the 2 that I'm looking at, because I've seen that he was a free agent, the 2 that I'm looking at in free agency next year is re-signing Carlton Davis, and honest to God, I am probably overpaying for DJ Reed.
I mean, you're going to pay a lot, yeah. So they've got some money, but you got to start thinking like
those would probably be my 2 main focuses. If you can move Terrion Arnold to your 3rd cornerback, you're going to be a lot more successful, I feel like.
Also, I will say this, and people don't care about it, but like Jameson Williams just needs to play ball. Like the celebrating after first downs and stuff, like I'm cool with it every now and then, but like every time, I just feel like the dude is a little bit immature out on the field. I don't care at all about his off-field stuff. That's fine. But
if we're calling him out for that, though, we got to call the Sun God out too. He does it every time too.
I mean, he's not doing it in people's faces, man. I just and it's St. Brown. Like, I mean, if we're gonna be honest, St. Brown is another reason why they made it close, and he's another reason why they lost. But critical drop and a fumble.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I agree for sure. That was a close fumble, but I do agree with that call.
Agreed.
But that's also another reason. That's also another reason why I do feel like this team can still get to a Super Bowl, though. That offense is relatively healthy outside of the Montgomery stuff now.
Yeah, I mean,
Laporte is starting to finally come on the last couple of games, which is going to be nice moving forward into the playoffs and stuff. Because they're going to have to probably potentially go to being a pass first team now, because they're not gonna be able to smash mouth with Gibbs. You know what I mean? He might get you 40, 50, 60 yards a game, 15 to 17 carries, but you can't throw him in there 25 times between the tackles. You know what I mean?
So who's one guy that gets hurt and it's over? To me, it's Goff.
Oh, for the Lions right now? Yeah, it's 100% Goff.
And then outside of Jared Goff right now?
Outside Jared Goff, it's Jahmyr Gibbs with Monty out now. Like, if we lose both of our running backs, like, yeah, this team is toast for sure.
Right.
But no, but the main thing for the line right now, what they need to focus on, like that loss didn't hurt them at all yesterday. They still control their own destiny, which is a good thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
They go to Chicago next week, so that might suck a little bit because that could have been potentially a Monty game if it's snowy over there.
Right.
So that kind of worries me a little bit if the weather conditions are a little bit, south. But outside of that, you go to San Francisco. That's going to be, probably a toss-up game just like Buffalo was, because they're getting relatively healthy as well. But then you come home to Minnesota.
I mean, I hope
So
the conference is wrapped up by then. That would be beautiful, right?
it was wrapped up by then. I agree.
Then
It
you
would
can
be
play
beautiful,
hand and
but
hooker.
yeah, but you're not going to though. You got 3 teams now that are gonna be tied at 12-2 after tonight.
Yeah, I mean, what's the score of the Minnesota game as of right now?
They're showing a replay right quick. It was 10-0 last I seen.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to lose that game to Chicago. Chicago wants a better draft pick, and they're not good at all. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's still 10-0. It's still 10-0. 3 minutes before halftime, but Minnesota's inside the Vikings 40-yard line.
like, are you ready to call Caleb Williams a bust?
No, I
'Cause-
mean if that's the case, I mean, so it's his rookie year. You know what I'm saying? They still haven't given him an offensive line. Like,
I guess it's like this
The
is a
same thing-
difference of like a team getting like him going to a team like Chicago, and then like you got Sean Payton doing what he can do with help me out. Who's my guy?
with Bo Nix.
Bo Nix. Bo Nix is I mean, he's had a really, really good, freshman season.
I mean, even when you look
rookie year.
at Drake May in New England, like they're not.
Drake
winning a
May's
lot.
been the best in my opinion.
They're not winning a lot, but like Drake May is balled when he's on the field. Like he did miss a game or two, I believe. But
I saw an article that said that Drake May, based on like scouts and stuff, they're saying that he's got one of the best tapes ever of any rookie quarterback. And that's with Jaden Daniels, because Jaden Daniels is starting to get figured out a little bit by defenses, right? He's still really good, but like Drake May, in my opinion, could be the best of all of them. That's a big name there.
Yeah, speaking of the Commanders, though, let's go back to the schedule for a second. So I saw the Eagles' schedule right now, who is tied with the Lions right now at 12-2.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles' schedule is a cupcake, dude. They have the Commanders, they have the Cowboys, and they have the Giants to close the year out.
Yeah, I mean,
So the Lions have
DeVito's tough.
Lions have to go 3-0 in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, outside of like Dallas playing a little bit better, but today they lost
Because I'm gonna tell you
for
right
8
now.
months. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that. I'm gonna tell you right now, if somehow the Eagles get the 1 seed, the Lions are the 2 seed, and they meet in the NFC title game, the Lions aren't winning in Philadelphia.
I
like
agree.
that number 1 seed has to come through Detroit in order for the Lions to get to where these fans want them to be, which is ultimately the Super Bowl.
I agree, man. Well, all right, man. We're going to wrap it up, but we'll be back on Wednesday. Hopefully by then the Lions traded for the best, one of the best running backs in the league or something. I don't know. Nah, they can't do trades if we're being real, but hopefully they bring somebody in,
They already got a top 5 running back starting for them.
That's true. Craig Reynolds. Jameer Gibbs. All right, man. We'll be back Wednesday.
All right, brother.
Peace. Thanks for listening to Detroit on Deck. Be sure to like and subscribe to our page for more Detroit content.